I'm going to go ahead and convene the Ad Hoc Committee for Ending Poverty in Los Angeles. Special hearing on participation rates for low-income services of public utilities, the development of a unified qualification for discount programs, and access to energy efficiency programs. We're also reviewing the program for sanitation as well. The first panel is actually background information, and the title of the Panel 1 is What is the Purpose of Utility Rate Assistance Programs and the Development of a Single Qualification Process for All Programs. First of all, I would invite Jose Huizar, Council Member 14th District, Jose Hernandez, PUC Low Income Oversight Board, and Claudia Page, Executive Director of 1E organization, to give us some background on the history of the provision of low-income rates for utility users, and also to give some perspective relative to their information regarding the City of Los Angeles programs. So first, Councilmember Huizar.
Great, thank you very much, and thank you, Councilmember Alarcon, for hosting these hearings. I think they are incredibly important to the residents of Los Angeles, particularly in today's time when we see energy costs rising at a scary level, that it's even more important for the City of LA to ensure these residents and all of us that we're doing all we can to make sure we don't that we continue to allow people to have the proper means to not only provide for their energy, but also to provide for other basic services. I'm here today to just basically give an overview of some of the work we've been doing on the Audits Committee as it relates to this issue. And I know that you've been integrally involved with this as well, Councilmember Alarcon. But I wanted to go back and just give a broad overview as to where we are now in the Audits Committee as it relates to the Department of Water and Power and its low-income discount program, and the work we're doing to increase outreach, to increase the level of penetration that we have for participants, and to also talk about what work remains to be done. As you know, Mr. Councilmember Alarcon, back in January when the Department of Water and Power had proposed to increase its rates for its utility users, one thing that came to light at the time was that while other major and similar energy providers are providing a 20% discount to its low-income residents that qualified, that the Department of Water and Power was in fact doing only 15%. And in that discussion, as we voted to increase the rates, the Department of Water and Power agreed to raise its discount rate from 15% to 20%. I thought that was a victory for low-income residents in the City of Los Angeles. And all the utilities at this time, as we know, use the same criteria to qualify for this program, and it's good to see that the City of Los Angeles, the Department of Water and Power, is now offering the same discount as other of the large utility providers. But one thing that also came to light at those hearings was that the City of Los Angeles, or the Department of Water and Power, was perhaps not as good in performing when it came to the penetration levels in terms of having people enroll in these programs. The initial numbers I got, there was some very noticeable and disparate differences between DWP and, let's say, the San Diego Gas and Electric and Edison. We got some numbers after those hearings from DWP, which makes them better, but it still shows that we're behind in terms of the penetration levels, and that we can do a whole lot more to enlist more qualified energy users in these programs. So at that time, myself, along with Councilmember Alarcon, we introduced a motion that will have the DWP come to the Audits Committee and our Energy Committee in Council to report on what can be done to improve our outreach, what can be done to increase the penetration levels, and what can be done to eventually have a better handle on how we are expending funds from the public benefits account, which provides the funding that allows for the outreach to happen. We held a hearing in the Audits Committee, and some information was presented that, and the DWP, who I know is here, could correct this number, but we have gone from spending $100,000 in our outreach program to $500,000 that we will now be spending for outreach for people who qualify for the program. I understand that this is still quite low compared to other utilities. For example, the San Diego Gas and Electric spends nearly $1.6 million to outreach and has nearly a 70% participation rate amongst those that are eligible. One thing that has struck me throughout this discussion is that the numbers we get, we really need to solidify. We have a lot of different numbers in terms of our performance, and so one thing that I hope we can accomplish through this hearing is really coming up with some numbers that we all could agree to, so as we move forward and set goals that we know how to measure ourselves as to whether we're reaching those goals or not. At the hearing, we did hear the good news that we are increasing our budget for the outreach. We also heard a customer outreach plan that perhaps the DWP can explain.
Mr. Huizar, I just wanted to interrupt you for a second. Are you familiar with SB 1939?
Not the details.
Okay. SB 1939 was a bill that was passed. It was a bill I wrote that was passed by the legislature, signed by the governor in the year 2000. One of the provisions of that bill was directed at municipalities relative to establishment of low-income rates. It also provided 2.85%, $2.85 per hundred on money that would be set aside for the purposes of the low-income program. Included in that concept was the notion that they publicize and market the program. $2.85, given that I don't know how many customers we have at DWP, but if you assume it's $2.85 per customer, we're talking about well over millions of dollars.
Yes.
And you're telling me that the marketing program was raised from $100,000 to $500,000?
Yes.
When in fact they're required by the state law to have a substantially large investment in the program. Were you aware that?
I was aware of that, and I think that DWP would be better suited to answer the particulars in the budget. But one of my concerns and one of the questions
actually, the reason I raise it is because I want to make sure that you and I are on the same page, because you and I have been the most prominent activists on the council. But we need, and you and the audit committee need to make sure that we are tracking where that $2.85 goes.
Well, in our discussions, some of the responses I would receive is that we are in fact helping low-income ratepayers by providing with energy-efficient light bulbs, energy-efficient refrigerators, and my response to that was that I'd like to see how we roll out that program, because in fact these products may not that are supposed to be used for outreach or for low-income ratepayers, that in fact the refrigerators or the energy-efficient light bulbs may not necessarily be reaching the low-income ratepayers. So where we left out in our committee was to come back to the committee with an accounting of the public benefits account so that we could see more in detail and more precisely how we are expending these funds, and to ensure that it's not only going out to proper outreach, but that the low-income ratepayers are actually benefiting from this fund. And that is one of the last remaining items that we have in our committee.
Okay, and the reason I point that out is, and I also want to make very clear that there is a distinction in the bill for the energy efficiency products and low-income marketing. So I off the top of my head, I can't reflect and remember the exact language of the bill, but I do know that we incorporated both provisions in the bill, and the $500,000 seems to be a dismal reflection of the intent and spirit of that legislation. In fact, it may be in violation of that legislation, and I certainly will pursue that. But I wanted to make you aware that that SB 1939 needs to be fully investigated in terms of the compliance of DWP. And the City of Los Angeles, and if the audit committee would investigate that, I think it would be very helpful to your overall mission as well as mine.
Yes, and our next hearing is Wednesday, September 17th, where we will hopefully go through in detail that account so that we see that we're properly expending those dollars and put them where need be if necessary. We also will discuss in the Audits Committee an additional item which myself and yourself, Councilmember Alarcon, have raised when we heard a proposal to raise our trash fees, and that is to have a low-income discount program for our trash fees. And that is an item that I think will allow us to further provide for some support for our ratepayers, and we are looking forward to hearing that item as well. And that is also going to be scheduled either September 17th or sometime.
I can tell you that on that score, the discount that is provided to Lifeline customers is completely driven, with regard to the solid waste program, is completely driven by their certification by DWP. Yeah. In other words, anybody who's registered as a Lifeline customer who gets trash pickup gets the discount. And so I'm not as concerned about sanitation's program, at least on that score, as I am about DWP's certification process, because that's who certifies for sanitation.
And that's where I was going by pointing that out, which is when we heard about the outreach plan, we recognized that we can not only do what we've been doing in the past, since we have such a low penetration level, but perhaps, linking up the two. If you qualify for one, you automatically qualify for the other, and that we should get more creative as to if we have populations in the city that are already qualified for a particular program, they should automatically qualify for, let's say, the Lifeline program in DWP. For example, one good item that DWP brought up at our last hearing was that if someone was living in one of our HECLA, our low-income housing programs, that perhaps we should already have most, if not all, of those people living in those housing programs automatically enrolled in our low-income discount program. It's items like that I think if we put more attention and focus, we can go a long way to increasing our penetration levels. And as I looked at this from a broader view, and I looked at the forest, is that I think what we really just need to do, and what you're doing here, is get more focus on this, on more attention, and I think we could really go a long way. I think the pieces are in place to really raise our penetration levels. We just have to put them all together and make it work better. Some things that have been occurring in the past in the DWP's outreach program, such as advertisements, et cetera, they work, but the populations, we already have them listed someplace in terms of programs that they qualify for, and I think that would be a more efficient and effective way of going about enlisting more people.
Well, it seems to me the spirit of the audit in 2002 was, one, to eliminate people from using the discount rate. In fact, a subsequent supplemental audit to review the 2002 audit, which occurred in 2004, essentially had the effect of eliminating 90,000 low-rate customer receivers from the system. And you're correct. I believe that focus is absolutely essential, but also the perspective, your perspective and my perspective, is that since 1985, when the city established the discount rate, that these people have been entitled to that rate. The ratepayers who qualify are entitled to that rate, and to the extent that we are not penetrating that class of people, we are to be participants less than the rate, we are not living up to the spirit and intent of the law. On the other hand, the challenges of certifying customers are well established throughout, but it's interesting that the city of Los Angeles, with the highest density of population of poverty, has the most rigorous standards for certification in the entire state of California. And it's that irony that I think it flies directly in the face of the city council and mayor when they created the program in 1985 and ever since, because we've always talked about, all council members have always supported the discount rate. And so I think I think you're absolutely right. There has to be a reacculturation and a refocusing. But frankly, some of the underlying infrastructural issues relative to the systems that are in place are going to have to be changed because there are some tremendous inconsistencies with the implementation of the program and that have to be resolved. Otherwise, and it's going to take some time because to do anything radically to transform them would cause disruption, perhaps, in service, and that's the last thing we want to do. So I would love to have a specific role at your hearing if there's some particular task you want me to do. If you want me to testify on SB 1939, I'm happy to do that. And in fact, I'll do more research to make sure that I provide you with the best information. I may be calling for an audit based on SB 1939 and the city's performance in that regard, a state audit, not a city audit. But I also think that you and I should join together to work with the controller to find a different set of values as they're going through an audit. In fact, the department is going through an audit right now, but the perspective is, are the customers lying about their certification? I mean, that's essentially what the fundamental issue is. When in fact I think they ought to be looking at, is DWP providing the discount where it should be providing the discount? Are they penetrating at a higher rate? Are they marketing properly? Are they using that $2.85 in a way that's consistent with the established policies and laws of the city of Los Angeles and the state of California, for that matter? I don't think the audit is looking from that perspective. It's merely looking at whether the people are qualified or not. Self-certification is a standard throughout the state of California, and it's amazing to me that we are requiring people to expose their personal documents, including income tax papers, when we know, as you said, if they live in a HACLA facility, they're qualified automatically. So why do they even have to fill out a form? So I appreciate the incredible amount of work that you've done on this. As a team, I think we can do a heck of a lot better, and that's my goal. But we also have to inform our colleagues because this has been through several iterations. I'm not going to say it was wrong for the controller to investigate whether people were properly certified or not in 2002. All I'm saying is that every council has a different perspective. But in 1985, the perspective was clear that lower-income people were entitled to a discount rate in electric services. This is an essential service. That's the standard across the nation. But if we don't implement it, you know, you referred to the forest. You know, we're not seeing the trees through the forest, and we have to go exploring.
Thank you, Mr. Councilmember Alarcon. And I'll finish by saying this. In summary, the Audits Committee will be focusing on the accounting of the public benefits account, also looking for better ways to improve outreach and be more efficient to increase the penetration levels. And I look forward to working with you and this committee to calibrate both of our works to make sure we're both sharing information and setting up the same goals that we might have in mind. And finally, let me just say that in July, there were several media reports that mentioned that there was a growing percentage of people that were late in paying for their city services bill, and that was not a surprise. But just given that it's hitting your average ratepayer, we could imagine that it's it's affecting low-income people even more. And so we have a lot of work before us in this economic time that we're living in, and to ensure that we do something about this sooner rather than later. I think we are already some time behind that we in terms of getting to a solution here, but I applaud your efforts to bring this to light.
By the way, Mr. Weiser, have you heard any rumblings that the Department of Water and Power is actually increasing their standards and ratcheting up the certification requirements? I've heard that rumor, and I wanted to make you aware of the rumor. I haven't confirmed it, but it's if in fact it's true, it will eliminate more people from the low-rate system.
Well, a few fraudulent applications is a small price to pay if we dramatically increase our penetration level. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. We shouldn't be so concerned about, yes, there may be some bad applications, but, that is something that happens no matter what program you have, no matter if it's an application for a discount or an application to get some free tickets someplace for some concert. You're always going to find some folks who try to take advantage, and that's just a small price to pay.
Yeah, but also in the context of the foreclosure crisis, where we've lost tens of thousands of homeowners just in the city of Los Angeles in the last 2 years, you would think there would be a dramatic increase in the number of people who are qualifying for Lifeline. And that's just one of the ramifications of the suffering economy. There are many other applications. The unemployment rate is higher in Los Angeles than anywhere else in the state of California, 7.5%. That should be indicative of an increase, or that should be indicated by an increase in the applications for Lifeline. But I just don't think people know about the program, and whatever the marketing efforts are, they're just not saturating. But it's also, there's a way to market to sort of. You put it in the fine print on the bill that nobody reads, or you have an earnest effort to inform people, educate people to use the program, and you have it incorporated into every single public event that the city has, so that every council office is trained on how to apply people. Every public department, whenever they have an event at a park or a senior citizen center, everybody is applied. If you apply to be in a senior citizen center, you should automatically have in your portfolio an application for this discount. I mean, there's a lot of things that I just think the department has been half-hearted with, and I think it's because they don't want to increase the penetration rate. In fact, I think they want to keep the tremendous burden on the poor that they are now suffering.
Yeah. And along those lines, one of the things that you and I have both proposed is perhaps an ombudsperson that could oversee how we are performing in all these efforts we're talking about, because as you know, you and I have a number of the things that perhaps we're going to pass through this committee, but if we have some person that is raising these types of issues that you and I are raising, that would be very helpful as well. So that's a proposal that's still on the table and will be heard sometime soon.
Well, indeed, on this panel, Jose Hernandez is a member of the board of the Low-Income Oversight Board that was created, I believe, with my legislation. Jose, who helped write that bill, is a member, and in fact, whether it's an ombudsperson or an oversight board, Mr. Weiser, I do need to have a private conversation with you very quickly, but this may be another model. Mr. Hernandez.
Yes, the California Public Utilities Commission does have a body, a low-income oversight board, to advise it on low-income issues, so basically to ensure and safeguard some of these low-income programs. We were created by statute, the Low-Income Oversight Board, in 2001, and had specific duties, and one of those duties was to examine the very issue of automatic enrollment. Three utility, investment-owned utilities, Sempra, PG&E, and Edison, they have two types of low-income programs. So when you're talking about the low-income programs, there's basically two different types. One is the rate assistance programs, which we've been talking about it. The other one is the low-income energy efficiency, sometimes known as weatherization, etc. And so a lot of times those get confused because one is as easy as just an application and then the customer receives a certain discount. The other one is more in terms of actually visiting a home or providing some of these compact CFLs, etc. That's also good to consider. One point of clarification, in discussing the public goods charge, In 1996, the legislature enacted AB 1890, and in that it codified how municipalities and investment-owned utilities would invest in public goods programs. And from that came this 2.85%. So all munis, irrigation districts, and investment-owned utilities are required to collect and fund a public goods account. The difference was that in code at that time, the investment-owned utilities had to specifically fund 4 types of programs: low-income programs, energy efficiency programs, research and renewables, and research and development and renewables. The municipalities had the choice of funding one or all of the programs. In 2000, the legislature enacted SB 1939, and that clarified that if there were low-income residents in a specific municipality or irrigation district, that municipality was required to offer a low-income rate discount.
Was there a specific formula?
It reflected the...
I'm publicly exposing that I don't remember what I wrote, but...
It reflected the IOU investment. And so the formula for the IOUs, 2.85% of a customer's bill.
But was that divvied up?
It was up to the utility.
So they could spend 100% of that
exactly.
on one program or not?
Up until that point, they could spend 100% on one program or not. SB 1939 required a certain percentage, didn't say what percentage would go to low-income programs. The other part that law required that I don't know if...
So in your opinion, without further investigation, the $500,000 would technically be in compliance with the law?
It would probably be in compliance, but there's other parts of the bill that would not be in compliance. So, for example, the municipalities were required to do a needs assessment to basically address that question in terms of, okay, what is the proper amount that the program should be funded at? And so I don't know if the City of LA has done a needs assessment, and that was, again, in 2000. And then that would, again, lead to the other questions as to is the specific amount that goes to the rate discount, the specific amount that goes to low-income energy efficiency, et cetera.
Okay.
Another piece of legislation then in 2001 that was also enacted specifically required municipal districts to set penetration goals for the rate assistance programs. So, again, that's another piece of legislation that I don't know if it has been followed up with. And included in that, it also required municipalities to offer low-cost or no-cost low-income energy efficiency programs. But going back to, I think we skipped kind of the overall kind of purpose of these programs, and they're very simple. Yes, energy is essential. So the purpose of these programs are really to ensure for the health, welfare, and safety of low-income and fixed-income families. That, for a lot of us that we can go out and buy Starbucks at $3.50. We don't even think about that. But if you think on average a $70 bill, a 20% discount is about $14. One of the advocates that'll speak later, I believe, Latino Issues Forum, they've always translated that as what does that mean for a fixed income family? It means bread, it means milk, it means eggs, essential items. So again, these programs are in place to really assist families that are moving towards self-sufficiency. So again, thank you for really looking as to how to ensure that these programs are viable and that there's adequate participation in the programs. In terms of 3 quick recommendations moving forward, one would be to set clear policies and goals. And that, again, just to make sure that it's in compliance with state law. Second, I think City Councilman Huizar already touched upon it, which was to conduct a budget assessment. I would assume that there are probably, I don't know how many customers, 2 million customers, would you say, in DWP? I don't know. But if you think on average, a $100 bill, you're looking at probably a $60 million budget for the public goods account. And so of that $60 million, how much should be going for low income? I think that those are some of the questions that should be discussed.
By the way, does the ratepayers, does that include businesses?
Businesses, yes. In fact, businesses
then I would say it probably is $2 million. I don't know.
For the investment-owned utilities, actually businesses pay a higher proportion. So it's actually, I think, about 7% instead of 2.85%.
And municipalities are required to pay the businesses are required to pay the 2.85?
I don't know the specific percentage that businesses are required in municipalities.
Okay.
And the last one, which I think you will go in depth a little further, is the whole concept of automatic enrollment, universal application, alignment system, that to quote one of our president-elects, that we have a 21st century vision in terms of really providing for the self-sufficiency of these families, but we're operating in a 20th century bureaucracy. That right now, the process in terms of application is overly burdensome and in fact deters individuals from signing up. So there are simple solutions for this problem.
Now, you and I should point out for everybody's benefit that you were one of my policy consultants in Sacramento, and you wrote a lot of the legislation that we were successful in getting passed. And we've mentioned a couple of things that are related to municipal utilities, but we wrote other legislation that was applicable to non-municipal utilities and those that were under the control of the PUC, the Public Utilities Commission. And the reason we did that was because they also were suffering terribly low penetration rates in terms of the proportion of people who were eligible that were actually signed up for the programs. Can you talk a little bit about what happened after the various legislation went into effect in terms of their performance, in terms of penetrating?
Definitely. Most notably was SB 2X. It was signed in 2001. Basically created the Low Income Oversight Board. It set in motion specific proceedings at the Public Utilities Commission to look at automatic enrollment. The unfortunate part is that because of, I guess, terms and commissioners, the commissioner that was assigned and oversaw the development of a lot of the safeguards, Commissioner Wood, termed out. And with that, there's been a slow process in terms of reinvesting in the oversight of the low-income programs. A couple opportunities that exist right now. I know that some of the organizations that sponsored legislation, like Latino Issues Forum, are reinvesting in their energy kind of policy arena to make sure that there's a watchdog.
But actually, as a practical matter, what happened with the companies under PUC's administration relative to their penetration rates?
They made a concerted efforts and will keep on making concerted efforts to increase the participation goals. PG&E had close to 50% participation rates in around the years of 2099, and they went as high as 75%. Okay. And it was partly in due to the PUC's action, but mainly also kind of political will and public perception.
No, and was that consistent throughout?
Well, yes, no. I mean, it fluctuates. Some of the SEMPRA, I mean, they've always been around 85%, and then they went down and up. I mean, it's also the human factor in terms of which individuals actually want to make sure that these programs are successul.
Well, I mean, obviously, one of the dilemmas that we have is that the average length of time people stay in one residence is 2 years, so there's a lot of movement, and tracking people down and re-signing up people is a very difficult process. So 85% is very acceptable, I think. Although I told them I wanted 90, but that's a different issue. And we keep trying to improve, but I can understand. I'm not going to fight a company that's at 85% or even 80%, but when you're more like 50%.
And the companies are getting more and more creative. I mean, I just heard that PG&E invested in putting advertisements of the CARE program in the Mexican consulates because they realize that, I mean, that's a population that typically doesn't get the mail inserts and things like that. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, through the years, there have been a lot more creative ways of getting the hard-to-reach populations.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, well, thank you very much for making time to be with us. And I want to thank you for the service that you provided me in my tenure in the Senate. It's good to see that some of the legislation we did is actually having a pragmatic effect, and people are taking advantage of their benefits that have been authorized, and this is not a new program. This is something that they are entitled to, and they're just not getting. The City of Los Angeles' certification process, if you could say just a word about their certification process. Their certification process is compared to all around the state, is onerous at best.
Exactly. It's set up to deter individuals from applying or reapplying. The CARE program self-verification, there is random verification that does happen for the X% of individuals that try to cheat the system. But in terms of the population, it's through the work that you've done in poverty. It's always disappointing when low-income families have to repeatedly prove that they're poor in order to get essential services. One other note in terms of the Low-Income Oversight Board, while our purview is IOU territory, our expertise covers all the state. And so we meet quarterly. If it's possible, I'd like to have some of the LIOB board members also work with you and the city in terms of the oversight in ensuring that some of the programs increase participation rates.
Is there anything that you can say very quickly in terms of improvements to the marketing program that you think would have the greatest impact of increasing the participation rates?
Well, one, I think you'll talk today. The whole notion of, if not automatic enrollment, some process by which if a low-income individual in LA receives some kind of low-income program, they are either checked off or sent an application whereby they qualify for the rate discount. That would reduce administrative costs and increase participation.
It's very interesting to contract with the City of Los Angeles. We will and I say this to DWP and Public Works in particular because they do so much contracting with vendors. To qualify for MeeBee-Weebee programs, for example, we will respect certification processes for all kinds of other jurisdictions. It's interesting that we will not do the same with regard to this low-income rate program. And it's almost as if we don't trust them. And we don't want them to get the benefits that they are rightfully entitled to. So I want to thank you very much again, and we absolutely will continue to work with you, and to the extent that we can continue to build the momentum by educating people about the options, and we intend to use your and your organization's services. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't know. Just
let me introduce you. Claudia Page is the executive of One Up organization.
Yes, thank you, and thank you so much, Council Member, for including us today in this important conversation. I have a PowerPoint, and I don't know how obnoxious that is to have you face the back of the room while I walk you through it. If you'd prefer that I don't turn to the PowerPoint, I can just talk extemporally. Okay. Well, let me say just a brief word of
the PowerPoint would be on Channel 35. Yes. So that's more important than me.
Okay.
Don't worry about that.
So let me just, by way of again, acknowledging our gratefulness in being included in this conversation, say just a quick word. I am the Executive Director of the Center to Promote Healthcare Access, which is a nonprofit technology solutions organization that's based in Oakland with offices in Sacramento. And our journey has been pretty much a 10-year journey to try and rationalize the enrollment process for families and low-income individuals across a range of programs. And I'm inspired by the conversation today in thinking about the places where the work that we have done with partners, including strong partners in Los Angeles, could really provide some important and timely opportunity for some of the challenges that you are facing, particularly around the penetration rate. I'm impressed with the range of challenges that you have before you, and I think that any solution is going to require looking at a range of tools and a variety of partnerships to try and make some inroads.
Thank you.
So I kind of present to you the challenge that unites the center and many of our partners who we work with, and it's been echoed here and in many conversations in Los Angeles. It's a challenge of access. And we know that there are a variety of organizations where an individual can go in a community, and at one of those organizations they may be able to apply for 1 or 2, maybe 3 or 4 programs, but they cannot apply for all of the programs for which they might be eligible at one location. That results in a maze of referrals channels for families where they're moving from place to place, many times completing paper forms that ask the exact same questions that they filled out on the form at the place they just left. All of that data ultimately has to be manually data entered into a system. So there's incredible repetitive manual data entry that has efficiency and cost implications. And at the end of the day, the impact is really an incredible missed opportunity to connect families with coverage, health coverage, food security, financial assistance, energy assistance, the programs for which they may be eligible. It's obviously an inefficient way to do business from a systems perspective, and it has an important fiscal impact, in particular on the health side of the equation, where you may be putting a person in a county program when they might be eligible for a state or federally sponsored program. So the goal of trying to make sense out of this problem is to increase the number of eligible low-income residents who are enrolled in the programs they're eligible for, and to alleviate the barriers by utilizing existing networks and assistance channels and improving them and streamlining the process. Partnerships are really at the core of what we have been working on, and ultimately this is working towards creating a more efficient system for both sides of the equation. It's really a win-win. One EAP, one electronic application, the name was coined by San Mateo County, who wanted to create one application that worked across a range of programs. And they joined forces with some other Bay Area counties, coined the name, and set off on a journey that seeks to create a no wrong door for families by creating one single point of entry. It takes in data, runs the data through a rules engine, and provides preliminary eligibility determination across a range of programs. We are really, really clear about where the line is drawn in terms of eligibility determination, and in many ways we're more like a sophisticated data collection and delivery system, letting the county do its determination for Medi-Cal, let the state do its determination for healthy families, let the utilities, if they need to make that final determination, conduct that final determination, but get the data to them in an electronic, error-checked, complete format so that they're able to do their job more efficiently. A couple of the features, and I won't spend much time on this, but we've really worked to make this system support the assisters and the families who are applying for coverage. So once your data is entered into one EAP and your documentation is scanned or faxed, it is stored. So at the 1 year mark, when you need to recertify, you don't need to submit anything that hasn't changed. So your pay stub has a shelf life, but your birth certificate doesn't. The birth certificate will be on file for reuse at the 1 year mark. If you have a child and you just need to enter the information on that new child, you don't have to start from scratch entering all of your family and household information. We provide multiple opportunities to make sure that we have client consent to share data across a range of programs, and we've spent time making sure that all of the documents that a family might walk out of the room with are available in the languages that they speak. We currently provide our printable documents in 8 threshold languages. We also conduct an automated birth records match and support our users through help desk and through some policy and operations committees. I have to say I'm impressed with some of the policy discussion at the table today, because I think part of what we have spent an enormous amount of time on is looking at policies that can allow technology to come in and be more effective at doing what it is, and whether that is allowing for self-certification, allowing for the eligibility of one program to serve as eligibility for a similar program, or using electronic signatures. Those kinds of policy decisions are incredibly important to making technology be efficient. In Los Angeles County, last February, 2007, One EAP was launched. And there was a slow and incremental rollout to about 30 organizations. And over the course of time, those 30 organizations have continued to use One EAP and have submitted applications on behalf of 15,000 children in Los Angeles County for the programs that you see listed on the screen: Medi-Cal for Children, Healthy Families, Healthy Kids, and CHDP. This was really intended to be a starting point in Los Angeles to get the tool into the hands of the community assisters who reach families and have them demonstrate the efficiencies of screening and enrolling children in the programs for which they're eligible. This effort was done in partnership with several large foundations, the California Endowment, California Healthcare Foundation, WellPoint, the First Five organization in Los Angeles, and with partnerships from organizations like LAUSD, who continues to be the highest volume user in Los Angeles, and the other organizations you see here on the slide. What I want to do is show you now the full range of programs that are available to Los Angeles in One app. And also point out that there are 10 other California counties who use One app, and each county has implemented a different mix of programs, and this is the full list. So in California, there's pretty much the big hitters in terms of the health coverage programs. And what you know is that once you've asked the questions of a family for Medi-Cal, there isn't a whole lot left to ask them to qualify them for some of the other programs. You ask a few more questions for food stamps. We didn't add a single question to the online application to qualify and provide information on their eligibility for earned income tax credit. We add, in looking in some
to work with a DWP, for example, essentially you need a bill
we need
or
two
an
things.
address?
Two things that we would need. One is the 22-digit account number from the DWP, and then there's a question about whether you're currently a client of the Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles. That's not
So if
currently
DWP
a question.
just did a run of all their account numbers and the names, and I'm not sure how we do this, but assuming you could just provide all the names and all the account numbers, then you could just cross-reference it very quickly in your system to all of these things, and automatically those people could be qualified for the low-income discount.
You know, I think the important part of that will be whether or not when they gave their information to DWP, if they provided any consent to have it used for anything else. I don't know what the issues on that are. And then the other consideration will be that right now in Los Angeles...
No, but if you're a contractor, just hypothetical, if you're a contractor for the city, acting on behalf of the city, I believe you're entitled to that information.
That may be true, and if that is true, then you could do a cross-reference and look at the families that you have in that database and cross-reference them against the database for One app.
And the privacy issue is something that has to be understood.
I mean, the big thing here is when the enrollment agencies and the community-based organizations and hospitals and schools who are touching these families every day and using One app are touching them.
Now, the information that qualifies them for each of these programs, are you confident that it would be the same kind of information that would identify their qualifications for the low-income program at DWP?
Yes, the criteria are the main criteria for DWP is income, and then there's and I understand that this may be part of the discussion today, is the requirement for this 4506T form. That I don't know that other utilities require that in qualifying people, because this makes it a little sticky too. You'd have to ask a couple additional questions to print this, but you could pre-populate and print this form, so at least that piece of the picture is done for the applicant while they're sitting there with a community assister. But yeah, the income criteria.
Now, let me get this question out of the way, because others might be thinking about it, and that is, there are other contractors who do similar things that you do. Do you know how many organizations might be available to provide third-party assistance?
I don't. I don't know what other of the vendors are being used in Los Angeles.
But they are in existence.
There are.
Okay.
Yeah, and it strikes me that all comers, if you have other systems that are being used that could incorporate these simple questions.
The reason I raised that question is because if there's more than one provider, then typically we have to do a request for proposal process. And if, in fact, there are other service providers, we can just get to that. If you're the only one, then it could be a sole source and obviously be on a faster track. But I understand there are other organizations who provide a similar service. So,
whether those organizations have the rules. I mean, what I know about our system is that it already contains all of the rules to conduct the screen for the range of programs that I'm providing.
But not DWP.
But you're just adding two questions.
Right.
Did you have something to add?
Well, no, in terms of, I know that the Public Utilities Commission is also speaking with One app because they're also interested in using them. But in terms of the Low Income Oversight Board, they've been the only entity that has the ability to do, the Medi-Cal Health Family cross-reference. I mean, there are other providers that assist in kind of the enrollment, but in terms of the cross...
Well, we have Department of Water and Power is represented here by the Commissioner, and I'm having this conversation just to make it clear that if we decided to have a third-party certifier, then that there are organizations that provide this service that have a track record, or if there could be a definition for a sole source. It doesn't matter to me. The point is, I want to get these people certified as quickly as possible.
Well, and to the extent that you can do the linkage with the other program eligibility, one of the things that we have been able to do is in partnership with the state of California. The state has given approval for an application generated by OneApp to serve as an official auditable Medi-Cal application. We're also the only entity in the state that can deliver data electronically to the state's single point of entry and to the CHDP gateway.
There's also this other question that Councilmember Weezer mentioned. I mean, if you live in this house, nobody other than somebody who would be qualified for this program would ever live in this house. I mean, we know of these places. You drive by them every day, and particularly assisted living facilities or rental apartments, that the only people that would live in a particular apartment in a particular area would be people who qualify for this program. So why can't we just say, if you live in that apartment, everybody gets it? Why go through this rigmarole and bureaucracy, even to the extent that you have simplified it? We can make it even simpler by saying, if you live on this block, chances are you're eligible, and we might as well give you the whole discount rate rather than spend. It's kind of like those schools who have decided to give the lunch program to all of their students because 95% of them are qualified.
That's right.
And the bureaucracy costs more than 5%.
That's right.
So they just give it to everybody, and it actually saves money for the government. So anyway, that's another thought I don't want to pass up, but obviously if you live at San Fernando Gardens in my district in Pacoima, you're eligible. So I don't know why you would have to fill out any kind of form.
Well, in your question about being able to run data from the department, the DWP, against other databases is another, that is an effective way to do a cross-reference check.
Another one would be anybody that lives in Section 8 housing. I mean, there's a lot of Section 8 housing in Chatsworth that is very decent, but you don't know that the people that live there are eligible for these programs. A senior citizen on a fixed income or a disabled person that live in a Section 8 housing. Of course, that program's dwindling, but the point is, it seems to me that there are other ways to discern somebody's eligibility that would be simple.
And that kind of goes back to my comment that you will probably put in motion as many of those kinds of solutions as you can, but to the extent that there is a tool being used right now in the community that's screening families across a range of programs, that with a couple of additional questions might be able to do some of the work to qualify and connect people to the DWP low-income programs. It seems there's an opportunity there, even if you cannot electronically deliver the data to DWP. I mean, that's the dream, is to close the loop completely for families by electronically delivering the data. If you can't do that, the next best thing is at least printing a completed, pre-populated application that's been error-checked and has the right information so that it has a better chance of success and not needing follow-up once it gets where it needs to go.
Well, we're going to continue to explore the information. I really appreciate it. I know my staff has been working with you to better understand your program, and we're looking forward to presenting that information to the Department of Water and Power. I believe somebody from the Controller's Office is here. Is somebody from the Controller's Office here? Okay, they weren't able to attend. I do want everybody to know that I do plan on reaching out to the Controller to ask about the quality of their audit with regard to the performance issues here, which are the penetration rate and the You know, it was really funny when they did in 2004 eliminate those 90,000 people. The easy way to solve it would be to just eliminate them rather than come up with a better system to qualify them.
Right.
So they eliminated the 90,000, but they didn't come up with a better system to qualify them. And it's by their own accounts, they're about 100,000 short of what is eligible, and that amounts to millions and millions of dollars. So not only you can be assured that I will be focused on this proposal and moving forward very aggressively and coalescing with all the advocacy organizations that I can muster to pound on DWP until they get it right. But the first step in the process is to penetrate what I believe is a culture that doesn't want to provide these people their entitled benefits.
Well,
the words are there amongst some of the leaders, but the organization as a whole, nor the leaders as a whole, embrace this notion. In fact, I believe they're opposed to it, and they're just providing lip service to get by until the next politician gets elected. But whether I'm elected or not, I guarantee you I will be your partner in seeing this through, because this is something that affects, I think, as I said, over 100,000 families and households in Los Angeles, and it's just unconscionable that we haven't done a better job. So I want to thank you for presenting your information. Did you have more information?
No, I do, but I'm happy to continue to share the information with your staff. The most important thing, I just don't want to leave you thinking that it's just a health-focused application, because we do have the rules in the application for food stamps, EITC, WIC, for TANF. We've been in conversation with the California Public Utilities Commission to incorporate their CARES program. Again,
yeah, so the requirement for DWP is so simple.
It's simple.
It's a number of persons in a household, so it could be 1 to 20 or whatever, time or factored by their
gross income. And they count,
and that's all that it is. But what complicates it is the multitude of ways to verify that. And I think that's what throws people off.
Well, they have a long bulleted list of documents that can serve as verification, and one of them, low down on the list, is a paycheck stub. It's the first one is an income tax return,
which scares people away.
Hard as heck to get too. I mean, yeah. And that's,
but why should the city shouldn't be in the business of reviewing somebody's income tax? I mean, I wouldn't show. Well, I wouldn't show my income tax. I mean, that's nobody's business. There are some politicians who have been challenged to do that, but and mine's very uncomplicated. I mean, but I just don't think that when you're doing it for a low income verification, I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
and besides, don't some of these other agencies require that?
They do. I mean, you should see the list in our poll. We have the way that that One app is built is it's kind of modeled on TurboTax. So you're only asked questions that are relevant to you. If you have a disability and you hit the yes button, it's going to expose a few more questions. So when you get to the income portion of the application, it's a pull down menu, and the list is straight from the state of California.
Let me say this clearly. I see no reason why the Department of Water and Power needs to look at anybody's income tax. And I just want to make that clear for the record. I mean, there are certain entities that should see it, but DWP, I don't see any reason why they should see it.
And if the state and the counties
and yet
aren't
they put it first on their list, which scares the heck out of people, and then they don't apply for the program, even though they could provide some other document. They get scared. So it's just, I think it's that attitudinal thing. They really created the highest standards to get people off of the system for whatever purposes they might have had.
Well, and
that's our challenge. I do want to thank you for participating. You are very much in the loop. We want to know more about what you're doing and how we can be helpful. But your information has helped me feel a lot more confident about taking this issue on. In other words, I see a light at the end of the tunnel. So I want to thank you very much, both of you, for coming here.
Thank you.
We will stay in touch. At this point, I'd like to invite up the departments, the very good departments of the Department of Water and Power and Bureau of Sanitation, and as well as the Board of Public Works. We have Forcy Hogan Rolls from the Board of Water and Power Commissioners, Enrique Zaldivar, Director of Bureau of Sanitation, and Ernie Cardenas, Commissioner for the Board of Public Works. I publicly want to thank Forcy Hogan Rolls for coming. We had no commitment from the Board of Department of Water and Commissioners to attend this hearing. Notwithstanding an invitation 3 weeks ago, and I literally went to the meeting today to express my aggravation that nobody was attending, and Ms. Hogan Rolls stepped forward. She has committed to the task of improving the Department of Water and Power's performance in this area, and so I was very pleased that she volunteered, and so I want to thank you. First of all, let me sort of dispose of the public works piece, because it's really not complicated. Yours is driven by DWP. Those people who are signed up for the Lifeline program at DWP are automatically provided the discount at the Bureau. So I really don't know that we need to explore that, because the numbers that you have are identical to the numbers that they have, with the exception of those people who you don't provide service to. For example, people in apartments where the Bureau of Sanitation doesn't pick up. So really, the discount is provided to these folks. The one question I did have that I still am seeking clarification on, I have not been able to find an authority for why the discount rate even exists in sanitation. So I would appreciate you finding me that authority. It was not in the original ordinance. There is a reference to senior citizens and disabled person, but no reference to low income. So I'm a little unclear what is the authority to provide any discount whatsoever. My goal is not to eliminate their discount, but to ensure that we have a fair program for everybody. Yes.
Councilmember Alarcon, Enrique Zaldivar, the Director of the Bureau of Sanitation, we will research and just like you have been on the authority that by which we grant the discount. We recently enacted a fee. It's called the multi-family bulky item fee that derives this authority from the ordinance, and that one is clear for Lifeline and low income. But for the trash fee, the solid resources fee, if the ordinance, on your reading, if it isn't clear on the granting of the authority to grant the full exemption on Lifeline and no on low income, we would be very glad to come back on what we discovered as to how that how that discount and under what authority we have been granting it, because it has been in place for several years.
Yeah, the ordinance, I think, dates back to 1985.
Yes.
Actually, it was amended in 6406.
And
It was originally established in 1983, and it was amended, and I don't know what the amendments were, but in 2006. But as I read I guess what amounts to the 2006 version, I have not been able to find any discount for low income, except for the one you mentioned, the low income discount, which is 44 cents a month for certain low-income tenants. I don't know which ones that qualify. I guess the ones that qualify for DWP low-income discounts.
That's correct. The amendments on the other have occurred every time there has been a rate increase. In fact, one was just approved by council not long ago, as you know. It will go into effect September 8th. So now that ordinance will reflect an amendment as of that date. But with respect to the low-income designation, or I should say the lack of low-income discount, that would have date back to the enactment of the ordinance originally, which would be in the mid-'80s. And so that's where we need to look back. I'm sorry, I do not have that document here with me, but it sounds like that's what you're looking at.
Actually, I'm not sure which version. I know this isn't the one we just enacted.
No, it
so
wouldn't.
we may have modified the one we just enacted to take care of my concern, but I don't see it in this particular one. And I just want to raise it with you. It's something that I think we need to understand better. But given that that your rate is directly tied to DWP's certification process, and there seems to be a consistency with the numbers we're getting from you and from DWP at 51,000 eligible, I really see no reason to explore more deeply the sanitation discount. I want to focus on DWP because the issue is really the certification and penetrating the certification process.
Sure.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
We are also joined by John Chen from, and by the way, I do want to thank your staff for explaining to me personally last night how their program works. If you could extend that to your financial director, I'd appreciate it.
I will. Thank you.
John Chen, the Assistant General Manager at DWP, in charge of, what is this? Oh, Executive Director of Customer Services. Okay. Miriam, do you have to run? Did she have to run? I guess she had to run. Anyway. Okay. Commissioner, did you want to go first?
I do. Thank you. And before I get started, I do want to thank you for coming over this morning to speak to the Commission personally. It's always important when we hear from our council members, and we're always delighted, even though it wasn't on such a high note. We all appreciated you coming over.
That's why they don't like it when we attend.
You informed us, and it was information that we needed to hear and that we wanted to respond to. I felt it was extremely important to come myself, not only because I know the work of your ad hoc committee to end poverty here in Los Angeles, but also because I stand as a member of the low-income committee at DWP that is chaired by Commissioner Edith Ramirez. Mm-hmm. And that committee was literally formed as a result of the conversation that happened a few months ago when we came over to City Council in order to get the approval on the budget. So I know that Councilmember Weezar and you and a number of other council members were concerned about that, and that's the reason why our committee exists. I also did bring with me John Chen and Wendy Yancey, who's our public affairs person, because a lot of things have transpired since that conversation, and I thought it was also important to share that with you. Of course, that does not say we haven't done enough. It says that we're starting, and we've made, I think, a huge impact on where we are at this point just in the past 4 months. So I just want to get started by saying our low-income committee focuses on ensuring that DWP will effectively and efficiently increase participation amongst our low-income customers. And in January, our staff...
Having said that, one of the requirements in law that was pointed out by Mr. Hernandez was the requirement that you set penetration goals. Does DWP have penetration goals?
I'm going to defer to John. He heads up our customer service unit. That's why I brought him.
Well, it is a goal for us to reach 100%. I mean, that's something that we will be constantly working towards for. And we have put in place plans and marketing plans.
I'm not sure that meets the standard of the state's legislation, because that's unrealistic. Any fool would see that.
Well,
let me go where we have done, and let me address how we're going to get.
I need a direct answer to the question.
Well, let me answer this
because that was not a direct answer.
Well,
the question is, are we in compliance with the state law that requires a penetration goal?
Okay, I'm going to say that we'll get back to you with an answer, because we need to first find out what the penetration goal is and what that legislation is, and then we need to get you an answer that's real. So we won't make up an answer. Okay, let me do that. So let's just not do that.
And 100% is not acceptable.
Okay.
It's insulting.
Okay. Okay. Let me say what we have done up to this point over the past 4 months, and I think it's really important to look at I know one of the things I tried to do this morning before I came over was to address your points this morning. I wrote them down as you were talking. So on the way over here, I was briefed, and I know what we've covered in our committee, and as a result of that, I have some information for you that I know is hard information. One of the questions you had was, were we at the department actually implementing the 2.85%, the electric subsidy adjustment? We are in full, and we've done it voluntarily, and the department allocates $64 million per year for public benefits programs. And as the gentleman said earlier, we're not required to just put it into one of the 4 areas, but we can choose which ones we put it in. So what the department has done is we've divided that $64 million, and we put $31.5 million into our low-income customer discount. We also put $33 million into solar photovoltaic programs for low-income people.
When you say you put $31 million into low-income discount, what does that mean?
That means that we are, well, you want to? Okay.
Yeah.
That means that we've made that much of an allotment to subsidize the discounts that are going to happen with our low-income customers, and John can expand on that.
Well, as the presenter has indicated previously, there are 4 categories of programs that you can spend the public benefits fund, which is...
It's low-income subsidies, energy efficiency, invest in innovative technologies, and renewables, which is what the gentleman also pointed out earlier.
So more than approximately half of the $64 million has been used to fund the low-income subsidies.
And out of that, how much is for marketing?
Well, $500,000 right now has been
So
it went from $100,000 to $500,000 within the last few months.
So $500,000, and we have 100,000 potential qualified folks out there?
Well, let me say what we're doing about that, because your comments were well taken. And so what the department did was we went back and we've now identified and have engaged the same consultant that confirms the number of low-income discount customers that are potentially eligible for our programming to come and do that same confirmation for DWP, which we'll have that report back by the end of this year. So we'll actually have a hard number for you, certified by the exact same consultant that works with the other independently owned utilities, to give us a solid number so we'll know how far we have to go. So we, at this point, don't have a hard number as to whether or not it's 100,000 people that are eligible or 300,000 or 500,000. But what this consultant is doing for us is working on it, getting us a good number. It's the same certification, and we're going to be involved in the state program going forward, so that we'll be a part of the entire reporting that comes out going forward. So we'll get you a real number.
You said participate in the state program. Which program is that?
Yeah, you want to explain that?
Yeah, I think there was some question on the penetration rate, because right now I think the number, different people may have different numbers on exact the number of low-income residents or households located within the city of LA. We have retained a consultant, which is also currently being retained by the CPUC to conduct annual market survey of the number of low-income residents throughout the state.
Now, I heard a rumor about department personnel working to tighten the rules to make it more difficult to certify.
No.
That is not correct, sir.
That's not correct. So we won't see a change in the income
Eligibility criteria?
No, as a matter of fact, we have increased the income level by 4%, as the state has done in the past 2 months ago. We have done that.
Okay.
And we're actually consistent with the state on that. And I know that there's a lot of rumors that float around about DWP. I get them all the time, whether it's in my ear or on my BlackBerry or on a phone call. And, in a lot of ways, it's disappointing that so many rumors fly about what the department isn't or is doing, when in fact our staff, at least since I've been on the commission, we've really taken broad and bold steps to make sure that that doesn't happen. So, and that's why Commissioner Ramirez and I are seated on the Low Income Committee to make sure that we are providing the oversight within the department.
Well, I don't need to tell you, the council was very upset
I'm sure.
when the
We were too.
when the department did not do anything to implement the advisory board that was part and parcel of the approval of the rate increase. In fact, Councilmember Perry in the committee said, forget it, we'll do it ourselves. So we will be creating an advisory committee. It was really insulting the way Commissioner Patsouras and Mr. Nuys basically thumbed their nose at the city council to say, we didn't know we were supposed to do it. Well, who else is supposed to do it? When we created an advisory committee, it's the department that does it. So as far as I'm concerned, they are not demonstrating any passion whatsoever to make this thing happen. And so we'll force it to happen.
Well, I think on that note, while it may not appear that way from the leadership, the staff has heard it. And while it may not have come across that way, our staff is actually making the commitment and has actually started to implement most of the items, if not all, that came up during those discussions, during April and May of this year. And that's why I wanted to come, because when they report to our committee, we ask them those things.
But is the commission generally aware that we have the most onerous standards in the entire state?
I'll tell you what I did. On the way over here, I requested applications and standards for city departments, and my short survey was that this is the application for the Lifeline program for the city, and this is the application for DWP. The only difference is that the tax returns, and they're asking for all the bills on here, we're not asking for that. So actually, they're not that different in terms of being onerous. It's onerous across the board, because what the other lady was talking about, each time, if I'm low income, each time I go to the city or I go to any other entity, I got to take everything again. And I think that's the onerous part.
Yeah, but I'm asking not in comparison to city departments. I'm asking in comparison to the entire state of California and other city jurisdictions and municipal power companies as well as private power companies. Is the commission aware that our standards are the most onerous in the entire state?
I don't know what the other standards are for the other entities. I would say that I don't know.
So then you're not aware?
I'm not aware that we are the most onerous. I would probably say we're not, but I don't know. I haven't seen it.
No probablys about it. Don't start more rumors. The fact is that DWP has the most onerous certification process.
How are you coming to that conclusion, though?
First of all, as the person who wrote the legislation, who investigated this in the state, and who served on the city council in the 90s, I'm very familiar with this process. I come to that conclusion because, first of all, all the utilities under the jurisdiction of the PUC have a self-certification process.
Okay.
Many of them use a third-party certifier to validate that information. DWP does not have a self-certification process, although we did. The other municipals have a variety of systems, but LA's is the most onerous in the entire state.
I did bring a copy, because I asked that question because you talked about that this morning. I did ask, what is it that we require? And there is a number of things that people can present. They don't have to present every single thing on the list. So I brought that along, and we also brought copies of what we're doing now for you, just to bring you up to speed on where we are as a department. And if we are still not where you think we ought to be, then our staff is willing to work with your staff to fully
As I understand it, the Department of Water and Power has on their Meeby-Weeby program for contractors, they allow other entities to certify other contractors. They trust that those other entities do that. We do not have a certification process that recognizes other jurisdictions, other forms of defining low income in DWP.
We do, and if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
To go ahead and maybe just update you on some of the information that was provided to the audit committee. Since the discussion several months ago, we have entered into agreement with the Housing Authority, which has approximately 50,000 households that they're serving, and they have agreed to provide us a database that we will be able to run against our own database of participants in the low-income.
I'm taking that to understand that anybody who lives in a HACLA unit who is paying for DWP service will be defined as Lifeline?
Low income, and we will automatically provide the low-income subsidy to them, because the HACLA does an extremely well job in auditing those income level each year.
Well, it's just, yeah, they do a much more intensive
Exactly.
process of eligibility.
Yeah, because they have property managers resides in some of those property projects, which they know the tenant, they know all the information hands-on.
Okay,
And-
that's good news.
And in addition,
There's more.
In addition to that, thanks for the approval from the City Council, we're now able to offer low-income subsidies to housing projects that is paying the electricity bills by the property managers. They have to service.
They have to pass it on to their tenants, or?
Well, they will get, in the past, only customers of that is a customer of Department of Water and Power can receive the discount. But a lot of those customers reside in housing projects that may or may not pay the bill. Now, under this rate modification, which was approved by City Council, we will be able to offer those projects, housing projects, the low-income rates.
Okay.
And that probably will have approximately 5,000 additional customer that will be benefiting from this particular rate modification. In addition to that,
Now, would in those two examples, would the customer have to submit anything?
No,
Nothing. Okay,
No.
so they just automatically get defined.
that's correct.
Okay.
So just those two alone, it covers a quite large population.
Is there any way to cross-reference for other programs?
Yes, we do. If I may continue.
Please.
For the LIHEAP program, the state has, that provides income to the
I believe I
low-income.
created that program. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I believe out of the $80 million, $20 million is being used by the City of LA residents. And we have also requested a meeting with them to ask them for the database. For anybody that qualify for that program, we want to cross-check to make sure we don't...
That would be for like gas service,
For electricity also.
only electricity?
Electricity and gas, but for all...
In other words, so if Southern California Gas has somebody qualified for LIHEAP, you would recognize that?
Yes. In addition to that, besides the LIHEAP, we have also met with Semper Gas Company, the Semper Energy...
We have,
Southern California Gas Company.
so they have service provision in our area as well?
Yes. So our service, their service level or territory within the City of LA actually overlaps with ours. So
In
we
terms
have...
of power or?
Gas.
Gas, okay, right.
So we provide the service for electricity and water.
So Southern California Gas and Sempra should cover all the gas?
All the gas. So what we met a few weeks ago, and we're in the process of negotiating a contract where we will be able to check the database of the participants. Obviously, their program is a little different from ours, not exactly, but at least give us a very specific target group of customer that we know most likely will qualify for the low income.
You said your program is a little bit different. As I understand it, our income criteria is actually higher.
Well, we use the same California's CPUC's.
It's the same?
Same. But they, like you mentioned earlier, we have income verification. They're a self-verified process. So we have to...
Now, given the, I want to be fair.
Yes.
Given the controller's focus for the last
Right.
6 years, how are we going to be able to stand up to that scrutiny.
I think there's two things.
And I'm on your side on that one, okay?
Yes.
So
Okay.
I'll fight just as hard the other way.
I think there are two things we need to do. First of all, we need to get hold of the database and to identify the differential. I think right now it's about 50,000 to 60,000.
Well, they're at 80%.
Yes, but their number is not too far away from our numbers. There's 240,000.
They're at 240. You're at
And we're
100.
183,000.
Okay, but theirs is at 80%, so we assume there's another 48,000 that they don't have.
Yes.
So
And hopefully that 48-some thousand customer number, that gap will be closed very quickly with the housing authority data and with the master meter data, with the light heat data, so we can close that gap fairly quickly. But having said that, we still wanted that database, so we have a very targeted audience to go after. Even door to door, go knock on the door, say, "Are you aware of this?" Send people that speak.
I'm trying to. Do you have any ideas of who some of those targets may be? Because I do. I'm thinking senior citizens that would not be captured by the other system might be eligible for our program. Disabled persons who aren't necessarily identifiable in other ways might slip through the cracks and not participate in our system. But I have to tell you, I'm encouraged. If you can incorporate the light heat qualified participants in the gas system, I do think that will satisfy a huge amount of my concerns. Now, these would also be people that would my constituents cheering. Now, as soon as they were eligible for your program, they were also eligible for the discount on sanitation services as well.
Yeah,
So
we're working on that.
we're talking about money that they can spend almost immediately to buy groceries, it's actually the benefit is probably larger on the sanitation side than on the Department of Water and Power side.
Well, in addition to that, we automatically also offer those customers discounts on the water rates for the low income.
Great.
So that's in addition to the election.
Now I have to ask you this: if we recognize those programs, do we need to have a process that goes through Department of Water and Power and then the city clerk and all that other stuff? Isn't that just wasted bureaucracy?
Well, I'm very encouraged earlier to listen to the presentation by the lady talk about has a universal application form. I think the CPUC and the investor-owned utility, we went to their basic working group on how to work together to have people fill in just one application. And we have already talked with gas company whether, for example, there's some additional channels on the website. They can, apply the application on the website. Once they do that, we can exchange information. If somebody apply for the gas company for the low income, at the end of each month, we can, again, exchange the application information electronically, like the lady was saying earlier. We don't have to have a hard copy of the application. Electronically, we can just...
Okay, well, then we now... I'll be watching very carefully to make sure that this stuff happens. You're anticipating this will happen in what period of time?
Well, I think a couple of things. The low-hanging fruit of the housing authority, we have to get that done. That's 50,000. We don't know the exact numbers that's missing from that 50,000. Even if we get a decent percentage of that, that could be 10, 15,000.
What's the timeline, though? That's what he wants to know.
Before the end of the year.
Okay, and on the gas company?
On the gas company, it's a little bit more complicated. We still have to negotiate with them. The reason for that is we have to get agreements on each applicant to allow us to share data with other entities.
The privacy issues.
So it would take some time.
But if we contracted with another entity and they were authorized to act as an entity of the city, would they still be hampered by that?
I believe so. You still need to get permission from the applicant.
From the customer.
From the customer in order to share that information. But the gas company, we're still working through the legality of it. I mean, I can't speak to on behalf of the lawyers.
Well, we don't have to get from our customers. We have to get it from
their customers. Right. If
Yeah,
you want to access
but
their
in order
information.
for us to get from their customer, they also want to increase their participation level. That's why they're willing to cooperate with us, especially for the heckler, the housing.
Could there be a possibility of legislation that could override that problem?
Well, we will bring back the status of this agreement to you and to the audit committee later on. But first, I think we are in the spirit of cooperation. I think we can work something out because it's beneficial for the customer to promote and market the low income, cross marketing the low income program.
I think in the long run, yeah, because you don't have to do all this duplicitous bureaucratic activity.
Yes, exactly.
And that's good for the taxpayers. Well, that's very encouraging.
And the other thing-
we'll be monitoring that, but we also want to work with you relative to the concerns that have been expressed in the controller's audits.
Yes.
We'd be sticking our head in the sand if we thought that these endeavors are not conflicting. There is a point at which they conflict, and we need to clarify so that we're both on the same path. And I'm speaking to this endeavor to have an accurate certification process versus the notion of providing a process that gets to all of the as many of the qualified applicants as soon as possible. And at some point, what I would envision is a hybrid. And the hybrid would be a system where people could essentially self-certify, but with a consistent program of auditing and sampling to ensure that the applications are maintaining a high level of quality in terms of certification. But I don't think we're there yet. And I don't think the audit's focus is consistent with Mr. Weezer and my concerns about this. And I believe I share the concerns of the mayor and the city council on this regard. But I recognize that the department and the audit that is being conducted by the controller aren't necessarily, I don't want us to be pushing you in a direction that gets you heat from the controller, or I don't want them to be pushing you in a direction that gets you heat from the council. Somewhere in between is the answer, and I believe that we can increase the participation rates for those who are eligible for this service and at the same time adhere to quality standards of accuracy in the certification process. That should be our common goal. But this is great news. So if your goal is 100%,
Yes, it is.
It is.
and you think you can achieve that?
It
well,
really is.
we
That's
may-
why we have the consultant going to get us a hard number, because our committee actually requested
The
what
only
the number was. So.
The only reason I smirk at that is because there's so much movement in the system. People are constantly moving, and it's impossible, I think, to track them to maintain 100%. And that's why SEMPRA hit 85%, then they go down, then they go back up. Some hit 90%, but then they went down and they went back up. On the telephonic side, for example, they've had the same experience, but nobody's ever got to 100%. So I thought you
We
were,
like to exceed
I thought
the
you were just
expectations.
giving me a simple answer.
Oh, no,
But I can
no,
tell.
no,
I can
no.
tell that your answer was heartfelt.
And the thing that he did not add is, because we're very excited about this component of the outreach that's happening with the low-income customers, is that whenever we identify a low-income customer, they also have access to free light bulbs, the compact fluorescent light bulbs, which are helping us with our energy efficiency. And we also ask them, would they like to apply for one of the free refrigerators, an energy efficiency refrigerator. So those two components actually take the most percentage of the energy going into a small household. So those become important to green our grid. So I wanted to make sure we shared that with you as well. The other thing that we're doing that I think is really important, if it's okay to move on,
Please.
I wanted to share with you our new marketing campaign since that discussion happened in April, May. So if you can bring forward our posters, and we also brought a copy. We're doing advertising on the buses, both in English and Spanish, and we have copies of what those look like. We have these available. They're in all of our branches, but they're available, will be in hopefully all the council field offices and anywhere other outlets that you guys feel would be appropriate. We'd love to have our staff get them there. We'll give this to you as well. There's a new brochure we've designed that's in English and Spanish that we're bringing up to you right now. And this campaign has been going on for at least 3 months. We'll go on at least through the end of the year. And then once we get our numbers and assess where the low-income population resides and is focused, then we can make some new decisions around what further advertising will be done. So I wanted to make sure you had that as well. And if you have any thoughts or ideas or suggestions about what else we could be doing to beef up our campaign, or what other outlets you think are appropriate, our staff is definitely open to hear that.
Yeah, two right off the top of my head.
Okay.
The council and the neighborhood council. I think we should educate. Let me speak for myself. What I would like to do is train my staff on how to present the application and fill out the application, so that every event they go to, they will pass that information on and receive it and turn it over. But I also think that neighborhood councils in key areas, as well as throughout the city, there's 90 or so neighborhood councils that they should be fully aware, and you should advertise in their City Watch little newspaper to let them know how to and educate them as to how to do this themselves. And I think given their number, we should be able to achieve our goals. So those are two off the top of my head. And then, of course, there are some advocacy organizations, but they typically know more about this stuff than we do. I was thinking of Acorn and groups like that would love to be able to. In fact, I was going to call Acorn and ask them if they can provide 5 people that I can train to do this in my district, door to door, as you said. So we'd be happy to work with you on that in my district. I don't want to speak for my colleagues because they have their own outreach efforts as well, but those are just some ideas off the top of my head.
The last thing I'd like to share with you is we just held our first, DWP led and held our first job recruitment and job fair on August 23rd at Crenshaw Christian Center. One of the things that I've been advocating since I've been on the commission, along with Commissioner Ramirez, is to take what we do into the community, particularly into low-income communities where people typically don't have information, they're not necessarily informed because our outreach just isn't there, which is really what your committee's about. And we actually, with the help of John and Michelle Nagin at the department, we literally had over 4,000 people at our job recruitment fair. It was phenomenal. And at that particular event, we actually had a booth so that people could access applications. We handed out about 600 applications that day. And we also were able to get more folks signed up for the refrigerators and get compact fluorescent lights to everybody that was in line. So as we continue, we wanted to start there. We're going to do them around the city in low-income communities. So we'll be in touch with you when we come to your district.
Absolutely.
And what our point is to make sure we're getting as much information and as fully informed as we can to each person that's in a low-income community. So there's going to be more. This was our first one. It was really excellent, so we expect the next several will be as well.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to sleep very comfortably tonight with regard to this, not with regard to my 7-month-old daughter, but this is encouraging, and we will continue to work with you as you move forward.
And I'll commit to, as we move forward through our low-income committee of the commission, we'll make sure we report back to you all on a regular basis.
That would be nice. Jan Perry is particularly concerned about that, and it's related to the advisory committee that has yet to be established, that we will establish. I think there's a partnership that has to occur there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Will do.
Okay, we have several other speakers.
Thank you for your leadership,
and
too.
I'm hoping that they took the information presented as good information that they can respond to very quickly. So first, let's ask Jake Wood, Rafael Peralta, and Acorn, or I should say Organization for Reform Now. Jake Wood is the Planning Director for the Department of Aging, City of Los Angeles. Rafael Peralta, the Tax and Benefit Director for Los Angeles Association of Community Organizations for Reform Now, Acorn. Nora Vargas is a representative of the Latino Issues Forum. Before I do that, I'm going to ask, Miriam Fogler has been here all day, which not the first time, but and she just has a public comment, and I know she has to leave, but she was here for the city council meeting, so we're going to allow her to make her public comment now.
Thank you very much. I'm here because I'm having a problem with my feet, and there's nothing been done about people who are disabled but have low or middle income. I'm not rich. I'm just in the middle income, and I'm having a hard time paying for my electric bill because of I need the air conditioning. It's very hard on me to run my air conditioner. I have an old system, one that's over 20 years old. And I have it at 81 currently because it's so expensive for me. It was $658, my electric and water bill. So I had to do it in 2 payments, and it's very hard on me. I can't be comfortable at times. It's very hot. And so I'm asking maybe there's something you can do about doing something for the disabled to have some comfort here, to help them out with their utilities as well, because since you raised it, went up $100 or so.
I hold on a second. I let sanitation off the hook. I forgot to ask them about those. There's a specific provision for.
I got to sit down now.
Please do. There is a specific provision for including disabled persons that isn't tied to the lifeline rate, and if they're only including people who are eligible for the lifeline rate, then the people who are disabled who aren't getting the lifeline rate aren't getting the discount that is specifically identified in this ordinance. So, John, I'm going to ask you, John De La Rosa, actually, I'm going to ask you to notify Enrique Zaldivar that we found a conflict. There's probably a whole class of senior citizens and disabled persons who I read to be specifically exempt, separate and apart from the low-income program, for the sanitation benefit, and they don't have a certification process for them. So we have to figure that out. Miriam, if you would like to work with DWP staff, have you applied for the low-income rate? For Okay, I want to ask you to work with my staff and the DWP staff right now to maybe go through the application process to see if there wasn't a mistake. Okay?
Yeah, well, I'm at middle income. They're not going to qualify.
Well, but the income rate is not. It depends. If it depends. I think it goes as high as I want to say 40,000 for certain individuals.
Well, I'm like around 60.
Oh. Well, if not that, then the trash collection fee you may be eligible for. Are you in your own house, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you have trash service.
Yes.
So I believe you may be eligible for the trash discount.
But there is nothing that I can do to be able to have my air conditioning. I just need that.
Yeah, I'm going to have to defer to.
I'm not asking for water and for
Yeah.
just my.
I'm going to have to defer to DWP and my staff to help you with that. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Miriam. Okay, very quickly, I apologize. Jake Wood, Department of Aging.
My name is Jacob Wood. I represent the Department of Aging. I'm in the Planning Division, and I would like to thank the council member for inviting us to advocate on behalf of our seniors. We are totally in favor of this rate reduction. The number of seniors, I'm sure everybody's aware that the population of seniors is increasing, and with the economy being as it is and seniors being on fixed incomes, it would be extremely difficult for them to accommodate this rate increase. We also believe that there can be better ways in trying to reach seniors. Seniors do have challenges filling out applications. There's a lot of fraud in the senior community. They're unwilling to give up any kind of information for fear that information will be used against them. In our partnership with the Department of Water and Power, some things we have been able to overcome as far as identifying low-income seniors. That is the Department of Aging's mission, is to target low-income seniors. And we do have a fan program in which they subsidize the purchase of fans that are distributed to low-income seniors. They rely on the Department of Aging's community-based partners to identify those people, and then we provide them with fans and low-energy saving light bulbs.
You're talking about those ceiling fans?
No, we're talking about
fans.
Just the square fans that you can sit down on on the floor.
Okay.
And
by the way, were you aware of this senior citizen exemption for trash pickup?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. It says there's an exemption shall be provided to any customer who qualifies for a senior citizen exemption. It doesn't really spell that out, but I'm assuming that means they don't pay for trash collection. I'm not sure they are aware of that. Sanitation just testified that the only people that qualify for that are people who are on Lifeline. So that means that senior citizens who are not on Lifeline, who are nevertheless exempt, are not included in their program. Okay. So I would ask that you work with my staff to first of all verify that information is correct. That's $400 a year.
Okay.
So that's a significant amount for senior citizens. On fixed incomes, that could be 5% of their income and non-taxable income. So it's a very significant. It could be 10% of their usable income. I mean, it's a significant amount of money. So that's something I would definitely want you to
follow up on.
Investigate. Okay. And I'm going to backtrack and go back to sanitation to point that out. I think there's a. You know what happens in so many. I'm finding this a lot in sanitation, quite frankly, but they've gone by practices that have deviated from the original intent and policy, and they just become the practice, and they don't have any basis with any authority, but they become part of the system. And I think sometimes it's through word of mouth. And this is the second time in a few months I've found a major discrepancy between what they're doing and what is authorized. So as an advocate for seniors, this is a benefit that you want to get to more seniors throughout the city of Los Angeles. Thank you. Rafaela Peralta. Acorn.
Good afternoon. My name is Rafaela Peralta, and I am the Tax and Benefit Coordinator for Los Angeles Acorn. Each year, Acorn runs a benefit screening system out of our office in San Fernando Valley in central LA. Our benefit screening system helps local residents determine if they are eligible for low-income ratepayers programs. We have worked with many residents who qualify for these programs and are not currently enrolled. Acorn would like to work with the city to help increase enrollment. We would also be interested in helping enroll people at our office. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I hope you can take some good news back to Acorn, but stay with us as we continue to make sure that the programs that were suggested actually get fully implemented. As you heard, it's going to take some time, so we really need them to make it happen. So thank you very much for being here. Nora Vargas from Latino Issues Forum.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Alarcón. Thank you for inviting us. My name is Nora Vargas, Executive Director of Latino Issues Forum. And Latino Issues Forum for over 20 years has been advocating on behalf of Latino consumers and ratepayers in the state of California. In the city of Los Angeles, you have over 48% of Latinos in our communities. And for us, it is critical to be here before you advocating on behalf of these vulnerable populations that many times don't have access to these programs that they are absolutely eligible for, but many times are not enrolled in because they are not aware of them. In 2002, LIF actually championed automatic enrollment with the CARE program before the CPUC, and as you know, Jose Hernandez was one of LIF's fellows who worked really closely with you and continues to be part of our team of folks who works on our energy platform and advocacy work that we do. But as consumer advocates, we really are focusing on ensuring that our communities have access, and so we have a really good track record of bringing the stakeholders together that may at times not be identifying those issues that are critical to the Spanish speakers, folks that have the limited English speakers, folks that may not, for many reasons, know that these programs are available to them. And because we have found in the state of California that many of the municipality energy utilities and water utilities have lower participation rates, we want to be of assistance to you. We want to make sure we support your efforts in ensuring that DWP enrolls as many customers as possible. We believe that a uniform eligibility criteria for discount and energy efficiency programs is absolutely viable, and it would assist in enrolling the participants. We know that the CPUC is currently considering how to also synergize the CARE program, the LIEE program, and the Telecommunications Lifeline program, and the program that you heard from a while ago was one of the projects, one of the databases that they're looking at, and so we support that as well. We really believe that it's important that our communities not only have the outreach is not only done to as many customers as possible, but to those that may at times not even have that access. So in those communities where you have a lot of migrants, folks that may not know that you can enroll and eligibility or documentation is not necessary. Our ethnic communities, I think, suffer from not having access to something that they should be enrolled in. So as an organization who is also headquartered here in Los Angeles, we have a regional director. We are here to be of any support to you, and maybe even, as we're listening to the discussion, figuring out a way how to go back and see if SB 1939 is being implemented across the state of California, including in the city of Los Angeles. And so we would love to work with you and to use our advocacy and policy abilities to really go out and be a true advocate to our community.
Yeah, I think the appropriate method for that would be to ask the auditor at the state level to investigate, to conduct an audit to see whether that is being applied across. I think they would have to do a sampling because the audit would simply be too large, but they could do a selection of small jurisdictions and large jurisdictions and, private, in fact, it included irrigation districts as well, but they can factor into their audit a sampling that is reflective of the diversity of the state of California, and I'd certainly be willing to support that. Right now I'm just busy taking care of Los Angeles constituents, but I think that would be a good move. I did want to ask you if you, hearing the Department of Water and Power's testimony regarding their outreach, their work with HACLA in particular, and with the gas company, the LIHEAP program, if you agree that would be a very positive direction for DWP ratepayers who qualify for discounts.
I think so. I mean, I think we need to do as much outreach as possible. We need to figure out a way to use the data that's there and to be able to outreach some more. I mean, obviously there's concern that you're talking about a small number of population with the city of Los Angeles just alone having, 2 million Latinos in the city, right? I mean, is it 47% of the community?
It's never been counted that way.
Yeah. But a large percentage of the population being Latinos, and so I think we need to figure out not only do the outreach with the utilities, but also ensure that there's community participation in the process.
what they were talking about was automatically qualifying anybody who lives in a HACLA unit, which is 50,000 people, or 50,000 families. I assume that a lot of those are already signed up for the program, but I also assume a lot of them are not. So that automatic certification, I think, would be a great enhancement to their penetration rates and their participation rates in this program.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing to add
But it ain't there. It ain't spaghetti yet. So we got to make sure that it's completed and done, and your monitoring and advocacy to accomplish this. I speak most directly to ACORN and to Latino organizations like Latino Issues Forum, is very important to this process. And so you can bet that I will send a letter to the Department of Water and Power. Actually, I will send a letter to you for your participation, but also CC the Department of Water and Power so that they know that this isn't one or two council members screaming in the dark. There is a system of advocacy out there that agrees with us, and we'll see this thing through. So thank you so much for your participation. And we don't know exactly what steps we will be taking from my perspective, but you certainly will be apprised relative to this issue. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have. Do we have any members of the neighborhood council system who wanted to testify? Okay, do we have a representative of the California Energy Efficiency and Renewable Technology Program, CERT? Okay, do we have a representative of the Natural Resources Defense Council? These people were invited but not confirmed. I just wanted to express that. Having no other testimony and no other public comment cards, I just want to say that I believe this has been a very positive hearing, particularly with regard to the willingness of DWP to explore alternative methods of certifying people who are eligible for this discount rate. We're talking about senior citizens, disabled people, people of lower income who are in need of what this has been defined as an essential service. You cannot live in a decent fashion in Los Angeles without having electricity in your home. It has been defined as an essential service to maintain any semblance of quality of life. The fact that they have been paying unnecessarily a rate that is higher than what they're entitled to is unconscionable, and we are doing this not to create political fodder, but to improve the quality of life for those people, so that they are not spending their food unnecessarily, they're spending their money unnecessarily on power, but they are spending their very tight dollars on food, clothing, other essential services, including medical care, and that is our priority. So I am very encouraged by today's actions and by the testimony of Department of Water and Power. We will continue to follow up on those issues, as I mentioned, relative to DWP as well as the Bureau of Sanitation. But all in all, I think this was a very productive hearing. So I want to thank all people who participated. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.